Good evening, my dear European friends and from other countries. Our heart is here waiting for you to participate in our live tonight, Spiritual Light. That is already 4 years, I think, if I'm not mistaken, that we are on the air, working, spreading the Spiritist teachings, Spiritist philosophy in English language. So tonight we have the presence of Munir Gariba, our dear friends, and Charles Kempf, that always are here to participate when we need. More than that, they are committed to spread spiritism in the world. So, Munir, your greetings, Charles.
Okay, thanks, Elsa. It's a pleasure to be here. So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are watching us. It is very nice to be here again with Charles, with Elsa, to talk about Spiritism today regarding a specific topic, which is the formation of the worlds. So, I welcome all those who are watching us now and those who will come to watch us in the future.
Wonderful. Thank you, Munir. Charles?
Yes, thank you, Elsa. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone. We are here without boundaries, to talking to all the people around the world who are understanding a little bit English. And as you can see, it's not Oxford English, it's simplified English, not very good English, from French and from Munir and Elsa. But we hope you can understand us, and we are here, of course, to spread, to disseminate the Spiritist body of knowledge, where we will see there were a lot of things taught by the spirits that science did not yet really reach or discover and find. So there is still some potential of future, lot of progress in for science to discover why we are here, why we are on this planet, and why we can develop our intelligence through reincarnations and so on.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Charles. So before we carry on, we will show a short video on an animation about how God creates the world. So let me do something here and there. Opa, wow.
In the very
Can
beginning,
you see it?
before anything else existed, there was just God. Then God decided to create the world. The Bible tells us this amazing story in the book of Genesis. On the first day, God said, "Let there be light," and light appeared, separating day from night. God saw that the light was good. On the second day, God created the sky. He separated the waters under the sky from the waters above the sky. On the third day, God gathered the water under the sky into one place, and dry land appeared. He called the dry ground land, and the gathered waters seas. Then God made plants, trees, and flowers to cover the land. Everything started to look colorful and beautiful. On the fourth day, God created the sun to shine during the day, the moon and stars to light up the night. He set them in the sky to mark days, seasons, and years. On the fifth day, God filled the seas with fish and other water creatures. He also created birds to fly across the sky. God saw how wonderful they were and told them to multiply and fill the seas and skies. On the sixth day, God made animals of all kinds to live on the land. There were big animals and small animals, wild animals and gentle ones. Then God did something very special. He created people, a man and a woman. He made them look like himself and gave them the whole world to take care of. He told them to look after the animals and the plants and to have children so that people would fill the earth. Finally, on the seventh day, God had finished his work of creation and he rested. He blessed this day and made it holy because it was the day when he rested from all his work of creating. That's the story of how God created the world in 6 days and then rested on the seventh. It's a story of how everything started and how God made our world with so much care and beauty. It reminds us that everything in the world, from the biggest mountains to the smallest creatures, is part of God's.
We would like to say thank you to the Bible in a Nutshell YouTube channel, from where we took this video to show to you. And now, carry on here. I will ask some questions in a minute now. Yes. I'd like to ask first to Munir, and of course, Charles can comment as well and carry on, because we will talk about spiritual world, formation, etc. So, Munir, is the spiritual world a part of creation?
Hi, Elsa. Yes, it is. Actually, we can see the physical world that we know today, we interact with, as being a small part of a much larger world or much larger universe. When spirits talk about universe, they're not just talking about the universe that we perceive through our eyes and instruments, but in a much larger one. So the reality is the spiritual world. And within the spiritual world, there is a tiny little bit, which is actually the material world as we know it. So yes, and everything is part of a one and only universe, the creation of God.
So, Charles, would you like to add a comment? You can carry on.
Yes. So the movie is quite interesting, because it's, let's say, these short stories that we got since millenniums ago, from the Genesis in the Bible. Of course, science has progressed a lot in the meantime. We found a lot of things. For instance, we can see from the movie this notion of sky, which was not very well understood. The concept nowadays about what is the sky is much, much wider. The astronomy has made huge progress, and continues every day making progress now with the new tools we have. James Webb after Hubble and a lot of others. And every day there is almost no day that there is nothing new, something new which is discovered every day almost. So of course, science has progressed a lot. And the spirit is body of knowledge. The spirit, through the codification done by Allan Kardec 160 years ago already. Of course, these questions, which were at that time in particular very hot questions, interesting a lot of people, Allan Kardec made them also to the spirits, and the spirits gave quite a bunch of answers to some of which, as I have told at the beginning, are still to be confirmed and discovered by the science. But one of them is, of course, you told immediately about the spiritual world. Of course, we are spiritists, so we are spiritualists. We know that we have something in ourselves where resides where is our intelligence and everything, which is not in the physical body. We have a soul, and this soul is independent of the physical body, and even it survives to the death of the physical body, which is only separation of the soul from the physical body, which stays here on earth. So Munir told it very, very wisely. The universe is not the one who says the universe is on. There is nothing in the universe out of the matter. What do we call matter? I mean, the list of particles, the Mendeleev table, and so on, all the components, chemical components, and so on. This is matter, plus also the universal attraction law, plus the electromagnetism, plus, these are all properties of the matter that are well studied by science. But unfortunately, the official science until today has still these blinds, saying there is nothing out of matter. And Munir told it very wisely. No, there is a spiritual world. The universe is much larger, much richer than just the material things that science is currently studying. So we are all eager that science is really changing the paradigm, removing those blinds, and opening to what is called post-materialist science. As we can see it from a manifesto which has been published a couple of years ago by several hundred of renowned scientists. So there is a kind of wake-up call. Please wake up. Let's open your mind. Let's have a bigger lateral view in order, and let's stop limiting ourselves only to what is physical matter, because there is much more in the universe than just this. And of course, you talked about God, Elsa. What is the origin? How has the universe been created? How have we, our souls, been created? Of course, by the Creator. There is no effect without a cause. And the definition of God in the Spiritist body of knowledge is supreme intelligence, first cause of all things. So we progress with science. We know always, every day, a little bit more from the formation of the universe. It's the famous Big Bang, which was 13.7 or 13.8 billion years ago, and then the formation of the solar system, which was something like 4 to 5 billion years ago. Okay, so the more we go, the more we progress, the more we discover these things. But there is always but how does the Big Bang come from? Where does it come from? And you need always to have a first cause, which is the Creator. And the Creator has created what Kardec calls the two general elements of the universe, as per the advices of the Spirit, which is the matter and the spirit. Okay, and all those have been created by God, and we are an example of how the intelligent principle, the spirit, can combine with the matter in order to make a living being that we are. So these are the information brought by the spirits, and I repeat, all the scientists following a materialist paradigm did not yet enter into this spiritual aspect of the question.
Wonderful, Charles. I was reading about the formation of our planet Earth. I was so impressed with the numbers and the information about how the planets were formed as Earth, the collision, etc., etc. is really a great thing to think. And as you said, that the spiritual world is part of a creation. Yes, it's true. And the primitive cosmic matter contained the material, fluidic, and vital elements for all the universes. So Munir gave a lecture once about the universal cosmic fluid. Can Munir explain a little bit about the way the words are formed? We are all this formed from the same principle. Could you do that?
Yes, yeah. I can try.
And sometimes my mind is like that because
Yeah.
only a scientist can explain better.
But Charles mentioned, and I mentioned as well at the beginning, that there's this universe which is much larger than the one that we know. And when we talk about matter, we mean more than just the material world that we know. Matter that it's composed by these about 118 elements that we know. Charles mentioned, the periodic table. And beyond that, we have also matter in the different states. And everything in the universe, we have the Creator, as Charles said, God, as we've seen also in the video, very nice one. but it gives me the impression it's interesting because it's full of truth, but the truth is not said in a direct way. It's almost like telling children about adult things in a nice way. But I'll later mention an example of that we also find in the Bible, in the Old Testament, which is quite interesting, that it's been told to us in a different way. But going back to the material world, so Charles mentioned that we have the spirit that comes from the spiritual, the intelligent principle. That is one side of the creation, and there's the other side, which is the material world, composed by this initial raw material, which is the universal cosmic fluid. So everything in the spiritual world, and in a particular case, the material world that we are in now, comes from this fluid. So it's a byproduct. It's a process that this fluid undergoes and creates not only everything that we find in the spirit world, but also here in this world. We see, for instance, our academic science. Now we've learned or know a great deal, but there is so much more to be learned. I would say, are just scratching the surface. And we go back today 13.8 billion years for the beginning of the universe, and it's clear to me that it's the material universe here where we are now had a creation. When we start to think about what there was before, or what there is interacting with this universe as well, we will see that there is the other much larger universe, which is the actual one, the real universe. And so there was a process, and for our planet to be as it is today, it took 13.8 billion years. So from that initial moment, that spark that started to create the material world that we have here, initially we had just gas. It took a few seconds until matter started to appear here as we know it. Initially there was just energy, and it started to cool down, and then the first atoms appeared. First hydrogen, which is the lightest one, the most simple atom that we know, and a little bit of helium. And that was the matter that was scattered in the recently formed universe. And so little by little, gravity started to act and create condensation of these clouds of gases. And as it got stronger and stronger, it started to attract more and more matter. And they say that for about, I think, 600 or 800,000 years, the universe was dark. There was no light. And there was a moment when the pressure and the temperature on this condensation of hydrogen was so high that the universe lit up. And that passage, is described in the Old Testament, in the biblical Genesis, as the moment that God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. So the description in scientific books, in astrophysics, of the moment when this condensation was, really high, and the temperature was so high that, it started to irradiate light all around. It was this moment that, is described as, "Let there be light," there was light. But the beauty is that everything recycles in nature, because we had helium. How did we get to, the heaviest elements in the periodic table if they were not formed initially? Stars started to be created and destroyed in huge explosions all around the universe to be able to meet the conditions to create heavier elements. And all that took, 13.8 billions. And almost 10 billion years after the creation of the universe, then we had the creation of our solar system, the sun and the earth. And it took 4.5 billion years for us to get to this point. Just to put in perspective that things take time, that this perfection that we get into the creation, it is a very elaborate process. And, we are going through that. And in that we have the natural laws, the laws of physics we study in physics. Charles mentioned, two of them. Gravity, mentioned the forces, electromagnetic forces. We have the nuclear forces also to create the atoms so that we, start to create larger blocks on top of, smaller ones. And then basically we build everything that we see around us here. But we are not limited to that. And the spirits say in the Spirit's book, that we start to learn, and they bring some information for us, but we start to learn about it. But at this moment, we can't know everything that there is because we are not in condition to learn. And I make this exercise, imagine if we could go back to the day, in April 1857, when Kardec was actually launching the Spirit's book. If we could arrive there and start telling people about the present day, about the devices that we have, about how life is, we wouldn't be understood. I mean, basically, they could understand or think that we were, crazy. Because, in 167 years, only 167. So if we take, 4.5 billion years and 167 years, nothing, absolutely nothing. We've evolved so much relatively that, everything that we know and talk today wouldn't be known. They had no electricity. They had no radio. They had, no electric bulbs. They had no cars. The cars were actually pulled by horses. And that was it, no engines, nothing. So the world was so different 167 years ago. And so just to see that, we've walked just a little bit, and we already consider that we've achieved so much here. And there's so much more for us to learn about the reality of the physical world here and the reality of the spiritual world, which is more complex than the one that we are here. As I said, we are just a tiny, part of this much larger jigsaw puzzle that is the universe. So we will get to understand things as we are prepared to understand them. So if we talk to a kid about a mobile phone and things, they will understand. But if we were to talk to the intelligent people 167 years ago, they wouldn't understand a thing.
Yeah,
so
yet they had already trains at that time. So
yes,
Kardec was commenting, science has made huge progress at that time already. Imagine.
That's true. Yes, they had but it's interesting to see that the spirits are very careful to say that we are not prepared to know everything about the creation, the formation of the world, because there's much more to that. But the beauty is that there's something guiding that. We see, for instance, in our planet, from the beginning, when there was no organic life here, to the moment that the first DNA started here, appeared here, and from that, organic life started to replicate itself, and it led to, who we are today in physical terms, our physical body. And together with that, we have the evolution of the spirits, which comes and goes to this, denser dimension, many times in order to, not only progress individually, but to help material progress as well.
And there are a lot of everyday revolutions somehow, because we are more and more observing, thanks to James Webb, and even before there were some observation of systems which are older than 13.7 billion or 13.8 billion. So what? Before the Big Bang, there were already stuff here in the universe that we can still observe today. So some hypotheses today are clearly saying there was not one Big Bang at a given point in time, but there were several Big Bangs at several places at several points in time. So it's very amazing to see how every day we discover a little bit more about this magnificence of the universe. And also what I think interesting, what you just told, Munir, when you explain how the solar system formed somehow by attraction of some dust and particles which were spread in the space around, and that at a given point in time, due to the universal attraction, made the sun and all the planets which are turning around the sun. And when you see Kardec, when he wrote us in the Genesis, the book where he has 2 or 3 sections dedicated to this, the formation of the earth and so on, he did it with the help of a young person, which was Camille Flammarion, that I think we mentioned already today. He was the famous French astronomer, at that time already heavily studying astronomy. He participated to the Spiritist Society of Paris with Kardec, and he got some communication from a spirit which signed Galileo at the end. Of course, all these communications have served and helped Kardec, and there was certainly a revision of Flammarion a couple of years later, because he wrote these messages in 1861 or 1862, and the book came out in 1868. But when you see the hypotheses which are emitted in the Genesis about the formation of the universe, it is still the one which is today considered as the most probable by the mainstream science. Even the formation of the moon, with 2 hypotheses, either formed in the same moment, or when the Earth was hit by another asteroid and then ejected a part of the matter which became the moon, explaining why the moon is rotating synchronously around itself and around the Earth, as it would be a part of it. We always see the same side of the moon when we look to it. And all these things were already quite clearly explained in the Genesis. Of course, science has progressed a lot, as you told, Munir. Maxwell did not emit the electromagnetism theories yet, and Einstein was much less. And when we talk about quantum mechanics, this all came decades later. Nevertheless, this revelation, as you just told, Munir, that there is this universal cosmic fluid as the primitive agent forming all what is matter, atoms, particles, and also the properties out of it, like attraction and electromagnetism and so on. All this is a transformation of a single agent. And this science is still looking for and did not yet find it. There were some theories about the ether, but the spirits were quite clear on this, and these are elements which are still today available in the Spiritist body of knowledge that could help a lot science in order to progress to this change of paradigm, in particular, not limiting itself to the matter only, but also going to the other form of matter which are composing the spiritual world.
Yes, Charles. And it's interesting to see that nowadays, everything in terms of the microscopic world is explained in terms of particle physics. And even the forces now are represented by particles, but they are not particles, like, balls or no, they are particles that have, a description or a property that is, I wouldn't even say that is material as such, So
it can be a wave or a particle.
Yeah. So it's really amazing that slowly things, not change completely, but we start to find explanations for that. It's interesting. If we study, for instance, the formation, as you mentioned, the formation of our solar system is basically what Flammarion described and Kardec described in those days. The thing is, today they have more evidence. So they start to, yes, this confirms that theory, but the theory itself or the explanation is really, really old, and slowly they confirm. And what we see is that things are not certain 100%. Basically, everything is built, the theories are built in terms of the most probable explanation is this one. We still have to find more evidence. That's why we're still finding evidence for a model that Flammarion brought and Kardec brought to us, which is like that. The fact that, yes, one of the explanations for the moon is that a Mars-sized object collided with the Earth. So, and it was a big one, the size of Mars. So they find more and more evidence. They collect now. We can collect samples of the soil in the moon, and then compare to what we have here on Earth. In Kardec's days, they didn't have that, but they already had the model. They already could explain. And this is the thing. And slowly we are getting into a realm. You mentioned Einstein, you mentioned Maxwell, and so many other scientists that brought to us a different perception of reality. The basic elements of the world here that we have. And
I will read a small
Yeah.
part that you mentioned in the book Genesis, né, organized by Allan Kardec. Of course, the spiritual benefactors work on the codification. And I will read this part, small part, Munir and Charles, because it's amazing how Kardec organized the ideas and develop all these teachings that is coming in our hands for more than 150 years. Is the number 17, the chapter 6 from Genesis book. After having gone back, human limitations notwithstanding, to the hidden fount from which words derive like drops of water flowing from a river, let us consider the progression of the successive creations and their serial developments, and said, the primitive cosmic matter contained the material, fluidic, and vital elements of all the universes that you explained before, that unroll their magnificence before eternity. It is the fertile mother of all things, the first grandmother, and what is more, the eternal generatrix. This substance from which all the sidereal globes have come has not disappeared. This power is not dead, for it still gives birth incessantly to new creations and receives incessantly the reconstituted elements of the worlds that have been effaced from the book of eternity. And talking about the ethereal matter. And people nowadays, they don't even accept, some people accept that we are immortal beings, come and go, through reincarnation. Some people said, no, once you died, you go to the place, eternity. He's living in the eternity now. No, he's gone to the eternity. So they don't say heaven or hell, it's eternity. I think it's a new things coming, I don't know. But as a spiritist, teachings, and when we immerse in the studies, and you are a scientist or a professor or a teacher or a doctor, you understand better than a lot of people about the spiritual world. That is open science. It's open for everyone to study and read and participate in lives like that and make comments, and the knowledge is there. Yeah? Kardec was there, and he didn't discover. He only brought the ideas. And now the scientists, as you said before, are discovering, inverted commas, the theory that I already had before. It is amazing. I had in my WhatsApp here talk a little bit, explain what is this perispirit, the material things from the perispirit.
Yes, so that's exactly what I wanted also to mention here. It's one step that science did not yet go, because one of the basic information that the spirits are bringing is the following. the matter we just described, the table of particles, the table of periodical table, and so on, including the light, the electromagnetic waves, and so on, are what we call matter, and which are studied by physics or by quantum physics or whatever. And there are some limits, some characteristic of this matter. One of them is exactly the speed of light. According to the physics today, you cannot have anything going quicker than the speed of light. The only thing which goes at the speed of light is light itself, because its mass is nil. If you would take an electron with a very, very, I don't remember exactly the mass of the electron, but it's very, very tiny, you would need an infinite energy to put it to go at the speed of light. In other words, it's impossible to have an electron moving at the speed of light. But, okay, so this is what characterizes our physical world. But the spirits are clearly saying, this universal cosmic fluid, this is only one form, the most densification of this fluid, doing the matter with all these properties I just described, and which are studied by science. But this is not the only form of condensation of the universal cosmic fluid. It can condensate on what is called half matter, or semi-material things. So it is not matter as we know from relativity, from Einstein, or from quantum physics. It is something which is less dense and which does not suffer from this limitation of the speed of light. Okay, the spirits are extremely clear on this. They say we as spirits, including with our perispirit or spiritual body that I will come to quite quickly now to answer Elsa's question, we can go from Earth to Jupiter instantaneously. They say at the speed of thought. But when you take the light, Munir, correct me, I think it's 8 minutes or something like this, or 30 minutes. The light to go from Earth to Jupiter needs quite a long time.
Yeah.
And but the spirits, they go instantaneously. They can even be at Jupiter and at Earth at the same time with the ubiquity, the faculties they have. So again, this is basic information that we got from the spirits, which we should take into account in our scientific reflections, in our thoughts, in order to try to find a concept of what could be the concept of this superluminous matter. Some people worked on it already. A French physicist from physics, Régis Duteuil. So he wrote 2 books, one himself and one with his daughter, about the superluminous universe and the superluminous man. And he just started thinking about what could be this matter which does not suffer from the limit of the velocity of light. And he found a lot of things on which we can find a lot of parallels with what the spirits were telling, also what the people going through a near-death experience are telling, this tunnel effect, or completely different notion of time in the spiritual world compared with our linear time, non-stopping time we have on the earth. And he found a lot of very interesting concepts. So this shows how just the thing to open a little bit, to admit that the matter does not exist only in the form we know, can lead to huge progress. And one thing is what Elsa exactly told. We as humans, incarnated, we have 3 things. We have the physical body, it's here, the study material studied by medicine and whatsoever, by science. We have our soul, which is, so what is our soul? That's another question. I think there must be a whole spiritual light emission only about to talk about what could be the soul, but it's not material, of course. And the soul is already also having what we call a spiritual body, And the spiritual body is exactly composed of what Kardec calls half matter or semi-matter, or it is a condensation of the universal cosmic fluid, but not at the point to form matter. So it's an intermediary condensation. And it's thanks to the spiritual body that our soul, which is immaterial or uncorporeal or whatever, because here we have some difficulties to describe what it is, can act on our physical body through the intermediary of this spiritual body. Okay,
Or
it could not
perispirit.
interact directly. It needed something material in between, half material in between, in order to be able to act on the matter. And then, okay, where is the interface of our spiritual body with our physical body? We can see here on the screen, I see myself raising my hand. What does happen when I raise my hand? My soul, which is immaterial, is acting to my perispirit, which in itself is acting on the motor centers in my brain to raise my hand. This is what's happening. So we have it in front of our eyes every day when you look into a mirror or whatsoever. But how does it work? You have some people also who started to think about it. So, for instance, Roger Penrose and Stuart Hameroff, they have an hypothesis which, based on the fact that in our neurons, the cells in our brain, have some nanostructures inside, which is called microtubular structures or whatsoever. And in this nanostructure, the chemical reactions are a little bit more complicated because it must be seen through quantum physics. There is a phenomenon which is happening, which is called the Bose-Einstein condensation. And they emitted the hypothesis. Of course, everything has to be confirmed here because it's just the start of the investigation of this type of things. Nothing is cast in concrete. There may be a lot of other things to discover and maybe to change even the concept. But they at least have the merit to put an hypothesis that our soul and our spiritual body is acting through these nanostructures in our cells in the brain through this Bose-Einstein condensation phenomenon. And then there were some people saying, yeah, but okay, this Bose-Einstein condensation cannot happen in the ambient temperature and pressure, which is of the brain itself. And then there is some other scientist, Brazilian lady, who added, yes, it can happen, provided there is a presence of an antiparticle. And with this presence of this antiparticle, this condensation can happen. And she emits the hypothesis that this antiparticle is brought by the spiritual body. So you see, a lot of theories. I don't tell what I tell you it's true. It's just an hypothesis emitted by some serious people who started to think about. So our invitation is clearly, okay, let's encourage more investigation on this so that we can discover how it works. Because the spirits are very clear, and this perispirit is also the intermediary for a lot of other things, You have the ectoplasmic materialization phenomenon observed by William Crookes and a lot of people around the world during the whole 20th century, and phenomena even happening also today. The mediumship phenomenon are also explained through the spiritual body. Or, for instance, we talked about reincarnation. You see, Jan Stevenson has made some studies, and he found some correlation between birthmarks and the wounds of the person claimed to be in the previous life who led it to die. You see, how are these signs transmitted from the previous body to this body? Again, an hypothesis is through the spiritual body. You see, spiritual body is really bringing a lot of concepts. Of course, it needs to be much more studied in depth. But it brings some ideas and some principles told by the spirits, given as a gift to us. Okay, here it is. We can tell you a lot more. You would not even understand. So start thinking about those revelations. And that's why I said at the beginning, the spiritist body of knowledge is bringing a lot of food for thought. Is it correct, Munir?
Yeah.
For reflection,
Food for thought. Yeah.
helping science to progress and to go more in depth in all this matter. Because one other point, just to add, I was talking now about life. How is I'm a living being? You have I have a soul and the spiritual body acting. And okay, what is life? What is the difference? 1 minute before I die and 1 minute after I died. What is the difference? What happened? Of course, the body is still, there is no activity anymore and started decomposition and whatsoever. Okay, but what did trigger that? The death. Okay, but what is the death? You know, always these questions are still today not properly answered by the science. And there is another point which has also not been answered by science. Munir told exactly, you know, the first DNA, the first protein, because DNA is a composition, an assembly of proteins. The first living being, which was a single cell living being, very simple. How did that appear? How did we jump from the mineral matter to living matter, to the life? And the calculation made today, saying, okay, there were some parts on the Earth, and this happened, by the way, only 1 billion after the creation of the Earth. So it's something like already 3 point or almost 4 billion years ago. How did this water ponds with some molecules or some bricks, which are the component of the proteins, assemble into a protein? So they started calculating probabilities, and the probability is the same as if you would, for instance, you take a clock, or another example, you take a plane, an airplane. You put all the parts in a big box, you agitate the box, and then you throw all the parts out of the box, and by chance, all the parts are assembling to compose the plane. So the probability is almost zero. So what happened? How did life appear on Earth? Science cannot explain. So, but spiritist body of knowledge also brings some elements here, saying it is thanks to an organizing principle which came from the spiritual world, or from this spiritual body, which was a very primitive one for making a single cell. Because today science is not capable of taking the carbon, oxygen, nitrogen, and so on, and to build a cell. Mankind is only capable of dividing, of multiplying, but to create one from scratch or from the bricks, man is not capable. So there is an organizing principle, which is, as the scientists say today, coming out of the space-time, out of our quadridimensional material universe, coming from Einstein, and which is bringing the necessary information and the necessary energy. There is a form of energy, of course, as well, needed to organize the matter in living beings. And then, of course, also you have all this chain of from a single cell, then to more complex and more complex forms of life, and then first in the water, then going out of the water, and so on, doing the mammifere until the human body, which we are also part of the mammifere. So how did all that happen? It takes, as Munir said, more than 3 billion years, but we are here. And what was the driving? If you take the second principle of thermodynamics, the law of entropy, normally it should go the other way around. The disorder is always increasing. And here what we saw is the order has increased. So this can only be explained by the bringing of some energy from somewhere else. So when we think about all these very simple concepts, it gets really more and more obvious that there is something. Sometimes they say out of the space-time, sometimes they say from the void, which is the same when we are going through the materialist paradigm. But there must be something somewhere to explain all this. It cannot be explained without chance or by pure probability. Cannot explain the apparition of life, and cannot also not explain the Big Bang. And by the way, there are a lot of other questions linked to that, Munir. The sun is hydrogen making a nuclear fusion reaction to make helium. Okay, this is giving the energy of the sun. But what happens when there will not be enough hydrogen in the sun anymore? So we know what happens. It gives a red giant, and then I don't remember the next step, a black. So the nuclear reaction simply stops. So what does this mean? The sun will die.
Yeah.
If the sun will die, what will happen with the other stars? The whole universe may die one day. The whole universe we can see today. So will this be the end of everything? But no. If there is another Big Bang in the meantime somewhere else or whatever, you see, the things is going through the eternity.
Yeah, we are basically halfway through the cycle of life of the sun. So
exactly,
basically,
it will die in
10 billion years.
5 billion years. And when it will a red giant, it will be so big that Earth will be inside the sun.
Yeah,
it's quite impressive.
Yeah, but that's how the universe evolves. Things are constantly changing. It may seem stagnant if we look at a short, time span. But when you think in terms of billions of years, we see that everything is recycling and perfecting itself constantly. You said very well, Charles, from a simple DNA molecule, we ended up with human beings as complex as we are. And since we are talking about the formation of the world, we should take our planet and the conditions of life that we have here. We have like a seed, and as the seed develops, we put it to develop according to a certain mold. So it will take the shape that we want, which are the conditions we have here on Earth: the amount of oxygen, the tectonic plates, the amount of light from the sun and the atmosphere, and everything. All these elements, they contribute to the development of life in a certain way. But life, is everywhere in different forms, in a dense universe or in the spiritual world. We see the planets, for instance. We have Jupiter and Saturn, the planets made out of gas here.
Yes.
But on top of that gas, in a higher dimension, there are spirits living there. There are forms of life that, are different. So the worlds are forming everywhere all the time and disappearing. And, the other day I was reading about, the fact that 4.5 billion years when the planet Earth was being created, the spirit coordinating this was Jesus. And in those days, Jesus was already an evolved spirit. And according to Emmanuel, the spirit guide of Chico Xavier, he said that the planet where Jesus evolved no longer exists. Because, 4.5 billion years ago, Jesus was already, pure spirit. So he, probably he had lived something like another 4.5 billion years until that point, or perhaps even more. Who knows?
Before the solar system even existed.
It's too much for our head, our mind.
It is, yes. That's why we have to take things slowly. And I just want to finish mentioning, once I watched it on TV, the program is very nice because it was...
Munir. I think Munir is frozen now.
It was filmed in the desert.
Yes,
filmed in the desert. In desert in the Middle East. Mm-hmm. And it was a desert, only sand. Wherever you looked, only sand. But during a very short period of the year, there was a mist in that desert. And after that, it turned into a green carpet full of flowers, very colorful, very beautiful one. And for someone who, doesn't know what's going on, that is a miracle. Oh, I couldn't see any seeds, anything. How come all of a sudden the sand turned into flowers and a grass and whatever? So
Namibia or Botswana or something like that. Huh?
Yes, that happens as well. Yes, they have a very
Atacama também.
short, rain, and with that, it's enough for the desert to flourish, and it's really amazing. Just to show us that things are here. It's not because we don't understand or they seem to be miraculous that there isn't an explanation for that. If we get a microscope and go to the deserts and look at the sand, you will certainly find the seeds there, just waiting for the right conditions to blossom or to grow. And that's what happened. And can you imagine in 150 years from now what people will know? That would scare us if they told us. They came today and told us, how the world will be in 150 years from now. The same if we went back 150, 160 years, and told people in those days about the present world.
Munir e Charles, do you know about the story that Chico Xavier used to tell us when he was curious to visit the planets, to visit the universe? And he was really curious and asked Emmanuel, and Emmanuel took him to visit. He was going out of Uberaba, out of Brazil, out of our planet, going up, and saw all this solar system. And through the solar system, he saw another Andromeda or another solar, or another systems. I think solar systems as well. And he was so tired to see so many things. He said to Emmanuel, please, it's enough. I want to come back to my home and have a nice hot coffee. So for me now, I want to, when he stopped here, I want to have a nice hot coffee with my friend here, because it's really amazing.
Elsa, only what you described, Chico traveled several light years.
Yes.
Distance.
Exactly.
And it was during a night or whatever. Huh? So this is, I mean, we have a lot of such information. And when you see, for instance, No Solar, our spiritual home, it's a city with buildings, with buses, with lakes and everything, which is somewhere in the
nearby.
atmosphere around the earth, where there are a lot of spirits living.
So I know that you, Charles, and Munir wants to talk more and more, because you have amazing capacity that put it through your explanation, this intelligent and very important thing, spiritual worlds, etc., etc. So we have more time. Perhaps next time we come back and talk more, because there are a lot of people interested to know more about these fluidic systems, about how the perispirits can work in another worlds, if you are the same as here or not. So there's a lot of food for thought for next time, okay?
Absolutely.
Can you finish? So your final words, please, Munir and Charles.
It's always, very nice to talk about these, teachings that we received from the Spirit. Slowly we start to I would say understand a bit more of that, but it's important that we study them, not just read once and that's it. It's important to study, to see, to reflect upon the information that they bring to us, to understand where we are, and also to give us a perspective of the future. Our future is immortal beings.
Charles?
Yes, I would just add that Spiritism is absolutely not against science. That's the opposite. It's encouraging science to study more and more and to open more and more the concept and the paradigms. Spiritism has absolutely no fear that if science once demonstrates that Spiritist body of knowledge is wrong in a certain point, Spiritist body of knowledge will adapt and follow science, provided it's demonstrated. We don't talk here just about single opinion of one or the other. But if the Spiritist is exactly like this, it will progress according to our knowledge and to the science. And as we had 167 years ago, the spirits helping Kardec to compile the Spirits book, for sure the spirits are still here in order to assist us and to to help us into this progress of the knowledge, so let's continue collaborating, opening the paradigm, removing these blinds, saying, and these dogmas saying there is nothing out of the physical matter, and starting to think about it, and then science will really make huge jump, huge progress in the benefit of everyone. Thanks a
so
lot for your
much.
patience and your attention.
Thank you so much, Charles. Thank you so much, Munir. Thank you, our dear Stevan, that's here in the Arizona, I think, United States. Thank you so much, Silvia, that she's on holiday. And here we have a friend from other parts of the world,
Rodrigo
Uruguay,
from Spain.
home, etc. And thank you all for being with us. Please continue to share our link with other people so a lot of other friends can feed thoughts from this live. Thank you so much. See you next time. See you next Wednesday. God bless you all.
Thank
Have
you.
a
God
nice
bless.
day. Nice
Bye-bye.
night. Night night. Bye bye.
Bye bye.